We are back again and into another video, which is, what does it take to have it all, right? When I say have it all, I'm talking about the finances, the body and the health that you want, and also the fulfillment that you want and the relationship that you want. So most people don't have access to that. Most people don't do that, but there is a way to have that. And there are ways for people who are naturally built that way to actually create the lives that they love inside those areas as well. And so that's what we're talking about. And now we're on video 3, which is why focusing on what you don't want creates more of it, and that we all do it. We all do it in some way, shape, or form. I remember my wife used to always come to me and she used to say, hey, we don't ever go to the beach anymore. She used to say that to me all the time. And it just freaking pissed me off because I was like, man, I'm sitting here working so hard. All I got left with was, hey, no matter what I do, it's never enough. But that's not what she wanted. What she really wanted was more time with me. And so when I really got that, it changed something for me. But there's a compassion that I had to have for the machinery of human being that literally usually goes after what we don't want or focuses on what we don't want instead of what we do, right? So we could say, it's the other side of the hand, same thing. Why don't we go to the beach anymore? I'd love for us to go to the beach. I'd love for us to spend time together. This is the way human beings work. So why focusing on what you don't want creates more of it. And if we actually were to be responsible for our natural way to do this as human beings, we'd be able to get results. So this one's going to be a quick one, and in my head it's quick, and it's super important. So when you're going through the series, I hope that this makes a difference for you because you may see yourself inside this conversation and it could change everything. So first off is that people believe talking about problems is responsible, honest, and realistic. The truth is that focusing on what you don't want creates more of it. So focusing on what you don't want creates more of it. Why does it do that? Because our being creates our reality, creates our experience of the world. So what you focus on gives you who you're being. Who you're being gives you your life. So the idea is that if you're focusing on what you don't want, then that focus on what you don't want gives you a being that literally resonates with what you don't want. And then naturally it gives you a result that you don't want, right? So that's the way that it works. Let that sink in for a second. And understand that there's a way that the nervous system works, okay? We're going to talk more about this as you work with me, as you talk with me, as you follow me. By the way, hit that subscribe button if this in the least bit interests you, because I'm going to get into it. I'm probably going to get better at doing more of these. So as I do, hit that subscribe button, and that will allow you to be in the conversation as I continue to explain this a lot better. So here's the thing, attention and energy. Let's talk about that. Attention is not neutral. It is a creative force. So whatever you focus on, consistent focus feeds energy, which creates, all right? So what we focus on, what we give our energy to is actually creating our lives and our experience of life. It could be explained in a multitude of different ways, from the reticular activating system to, we could look at the observer effect, which impacts, whatever we observe actually is shifted by the observer itself. And of course, the reticular activating system is always looking for whatever we create. Have you ever seen a car? I've talked about it in the last one, but it's true. If you have a car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, or if you talk about something, it shows up in your life. Well, it's that same kind of energy. Just understand that we're actually creating whatever we want, and it's based upon our focus. We're creating whatever we live in our lives. So if you have a negative focus, rehearsing problems, constantly getting into complaints and frustrations, indulging inside of those things, then you're strengthening them and you're not actually solving them, you're actually causing more problems. All right, so cool, awesome. Let's keep on going. So this is my life, so basically I was not as woke, if you will, as I am today. And for a long time, I had made up in my mind that I always knew that I wanted to do well in life. We grew up, my mom was a single mom, and she raised us in New York City and Brooklyn on her own for most of my early youth. And that was a tough coming up. And I knew that I didn't want to be broke because I knew what broke felt like, and I knew how much suffering it gave us, and I wanted to always do well. And so I worked really, really hard. I worked hard at school. I worked hard at everything else. I'm sure you can relate to some of these stories. I did everything that I knew to do. And what was happening was I was never getting ahead. I wasn't able to produce the results I wanted to, mostly because I was focusing on not failing, on not being broke, instead of having abundance and having a level of financial freedom, right? And so those decisions decisions driven by fear, the fear of being in the same place, being stuck, had me, playing small, hesitating, had me sabotaging myself and finding myself right back in the same position. And so the results I was getting was based upon what I feared because that was my focus. So I used to ride a motorcycle, and they told you always when you're riding a motorcycle and you're in a curve, look where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. And there's a reason for it, because when you're actually focused on where you want to go, your body moves in that direction and it takes you there. If you focus on what you don't want, you're actually going to go in that direction as well. It's the same thing in life. So the more I focus on the things I didn't want is the more I got them. And I didn't know I was focusing on the things I didn't want. I thought I was positive. I thought I was doing the things that needed to be done to be successful. Hard work. I was ambitious. I was very smart, but I was not getting the results that I wanted to in life. And it was because of my focus. All that energy and all that power that I knew I had was going in the wrong directions. And some of you may feel the same exact way. And so we're going to shift that. I mean, one of the things that you have to do is you get responsible for this very, 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 very simple, but very powerful concept, which is, what we focus on, we create. And if you're focused on the negative, then you're going to create more negative. So our nervous system cannot move toward a negative, only toward an angle, an image, right? So what happens is that you and I create the image, and that image is actually driving us in that direction, kind of like that motorcycle that I talked about. So you're saying, I don't want poverty or scarcity. But then guess what? You just thought about scarcity and poverty. So guess what you create more of? You create more scarcity and more poverty. So the subconscious doesn't understand doesn't understand not. Try to tell your kid, don't do this. Or you tell somebody, hey, don't look over there. What do? They automatically look over there, right? And that's how it works. So just understand that that's just the way that it is. We say, I don't want to be broke. And guess what we do? We focus on broke. That's what happens. So behavior organized around the negative focus is going to naturally occur because that's what we do. What we focus on, we create, right? And we go in that direction. So that's the important insight. So here's the reality. Complaints don't resolve problems. So if you find yourself talking about what you don't want, by the way, that's a complaint. Anytime you talk about something that's unwanted, guess what? It's a complaint. So you want to keep those to a minimum. You want to acknowledge them, and you want to accept that, those things are there, but you quickly want to move on, because if you don't, you'll indulge in it and it's going to give you more of the same. All right. Complaints don't resolve problems. They rehearse them. And that is the insight that I want you to get here inside of that. So here's the other side of it. Behind every complaint, there is an intention. Okay. So there is a pure intention. There is a what wants to be created in your life. So understanding that is going to give you a massive amount of power, and certainly has given me a massive amount of power in my life. Okay. So understanding that if I'm thinking I don't want this, well, then on the other side of it must be what I really do want. It's also given me a lot of compassion for other people, because what people say that they don't want something, or they complain to you about something. Oh, you're selfish, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, you're calling me selfish because what you want is partnership. What you want is for us to have each other's back. That's what you want more than anything else, right? That's what they're really saying more than anything else. Or they keep on saying, hey, well, I don't have enough time. You're not giving me enough time. Okay, great. But I got it. What you really want is more time. Human beings communicate inside of the negative, usually inside of complaints. And that's why a lot of human beings don't expand beyond a certain level, and they can't have more. So our job, you and I, our job is to get present to that this is the natural way of being. It helped us survive as children, as babies, where we said, hey, I don't feel good. Something's wrong here. And then somebody came and they fixed that something's wrong here with us, right? You cried as a baby, and then all of a sudden somebody gave you something, right? We talked about that in a previous session. Same thing here. So these things we have to, naturally, they're obsolete programming that helped us survive as a baby, but doesn't help us to create as an adult, because all we're doing is creating the thing that we don't want, right? And so the opportunity is to understand that behind every complaint, there's an intention, and making sure that that intention now governs our thinking, right? Does that make sense? It now governs our focus and gives us what we now think, say, and do. And that gives us an access to a life that we wouldn't have had otherwise. All right, so reframing our complaints is important. Instead of saying, I'm tired of being broke, it's saying, hey, I want financial freedom and money. Instead of I hate being alone, you could create, I have a loving, supportive relationship. And instead of I hate how I look, you could create having a strong, healthy, attractive body, being an attractive figure yourself, right? And so those are the things that you could do in your reframing of yourself. And if you do that, then all of a sudden you start looking for and seeing opportunities to produce that thing in your life. Believe it or not, all of a sudden you'll start creating all sorts of workability. You'll start finding answers to things that you never thought that you even could, or that there was a solution to some of these problems. But then you'll start creating those solutions because your brain is massively powerful. We are built to create. There are already solutions that exist. There are alternate universes, realities where you could have that thing that you want. And now all of a sudden you're aligning yourself with them. You're on that same frequency. And now those solutions become available to you, become aware to you. And that's how it's been for me. Because the moment that I stopped looking for, hey, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to have the scarcity that I grew up in, I want something else. And I started looking for, okay, here's what I really want. I want to travel the world. I want to speak multiple languages. I want to live in different countries. I want to, have wealth. I want to make more than $1 million. I want to make 7 figures a year. I want to, whatever those things were that I wanted, I was going to create those things in my life, and I did. And when I started doing that, then I started using that creative force instead of, I don't want to be broke, I don't want scarcity. It was like, I want abundance. I'm creating, like what I'm having for my life, what I can see for my life is, I'm going to be I'm a 7-figure earner this is who I really am. I'm a 7-figure earner who travels the world and has all these opportunities, and I've created all of it. Speak multiple languages. I've lived in 6 different countries over the years. I have, traveled to over almost 50 countries now, and I have lived a glorious life, and I've made 8 figures, at this point in my life. So inside of that, there's plenty of opportunities that you could really get access to that are just not available to you today because your focus is on the negative. That energy is creating, could be creating 8 figures, or it could be creating scarcity. So you and I get to be responsible for it, and I still get to be responsible for it today. So just take that on. That's really what this conversation is about more than anything else. What you aim at consistently, you eventually hit. So we're going to aim at abundance, not scarcity. Does that make sense? All right. So once again, the practical steps to redirect focus is number 1, see where you're complaining, see where you're focusing on the things that are not it. All right. And notice it without judgment. Don't make yourself wrong for it. Just get that that's what you've been focusing on. And then number 2 is to rewrite that complaint. Now you get to choose what you want instead of what you don't want. And lastly, it's to do. Take an action inside of it. Take an action inside of what you do want instead of what you don't want. Okay? Really simple, really straightforward. But really, guys, the access to getting out of the matrix, to getting out of that area of unworkability of life, whatever it may be, getting out of the cage, the stuckness of life is really awareness. When you can get present to whatever that programming is that's been running your life, then all of a sudden you get access to power in life. So you don't need more effort. You need better aim, right? So stop focusing on what you don't want and start focusing on what you do. Stop feeding what you don't want, start feeding what you do. Life reorganizes itself around your focus, period. Okay, and this is the natural process of creation, and I'm telling you, it's gonna give you everything that you want for life. It's gonna change the game for you. Very simple concept, but it's simple. Deep down, you know that you have access to everything that you want. I did too. I knew it. I knew I was supposed to be successful. I knew I was supposed to have more. I knew I was supposed to be able to create more for my life. And, for whatever reason, these reasons, I wasn't actually creating. My energy was being used to hold me and to keep me prisoner inside of a life I didn't want to live and to create suffering for me instead of to create power for me, to create expansion, to create full self-expression, abundance, and everything else that I wanted, love, everything else. And so now I want to make sure that you get access to it. And I hope that this message resonates with you in that way. Okay, so next topic that we're going to talk about really simply is what I want to leave you with is focusing on what you don't want is 100% giving you what you don't. So if you look at your life and there's something that is persisting, that keeps on showing up, that you don't want 100%, it is because you're somehow focusing on it. And so the question is, are you doing it consciously or not. And well, we've got to stop that conscious focus on the things that you don't want. And if it's subconscious, by the way, sometimes that does happen where we're subconsciously focusing on things that we don't want, and it's dragging and creating it inside of us. And so bringing that into awareness is what's going to give you a massive amount of power to shift that and to be able to create something that you do. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to hold an intention without forcing it. Like, how do I actually create that thing that I want, that thing that I get to focus on, that's going to literally create my life and create it like this. All right, so I'll talk to you in the next one.